My name is Kathy Garcia, and at 68 years old, I found myself at a crossroads that began on a warm Austin, Texas evening, at a dinner I wish I'd never attended. The dining room buzzed with the clink of silverware and the hollow laughter of family who barely acknowledged me. They seated me at the far end of the long table, by the sliding glass door, as if I were an afterthought. I smiled when expected, nodded on cue, but my plate held more silence than food. My son, Daryl, sat near the center. His wife, Sabrina, beside him, her linen dress catching the light. Sabrina spoke with a commanding air, her words sharp enough to slice through the chatter. Swirling her wine, she leaned forward, her voice cutting like a blade, asking how it felt to live without contributing anything anymore. The laughter that followed was thin, nervous, but it stung deeper than any wound. Even my grandson, Mateo, still in high school, smirked, joining the chorus. My chest tightened, and for a moment, I wanted to disappear into the chair. But I set my water glass down with a deliberate clink, sharp enough to hush the room. I straightened my spine, locked eyes with Sabrina, and spoke not with anger, but with calm resolve. I declared that this useless old woman would no longer pay their bills. The silence that followed was heavy, pressing against the walls. Sabrina's smile faltered, confusion replacing her confidence. Daryl's fork froze midair, and Mateo's gaze dropped to his plate. My words carried a quiet power, not from shouting, but from refusing to play their game any longer. My chair scraped the wooden floor as I stood, the sound final. I gathered my purse, gave a single nod to no one in particular, and stepped through the patio doors. The evening air greeted me like a trusted friend, cool and grounding. Beyond the garden, the Texas sky stretched vast, brushed with the day's last light. For the first time in years, my lungs filled fully, as if I'd been holding my breath for decades. Standing there, listening to the cicadas hum and the fading clink of glasses, I realized I'd crossed a line. I was no longer the silent provider. The night opened before me, full of possibility, and I understood I hadn't breathed freely in years. Back home, the quiet of my small house felt heavier than the voices I'd left behind. I walked to my office and opened the bottom drawer of an old wooden cabinet. Inside were folders, their edges worn, their weight heavier than paper should be. Each held pieces of my story, pieces my family never cared to know. I spread one folder's contents across my desk. Bank transfers made in the dead of night when Sabrina overspent. Receipts for boutique rent when her shop faltered. Notes on Daryl's credit card debts he was too ashamed to admit. Tuition payments for Mateo's private school costs that should have been shared but always fell to me. Every page was a record of hushed calls, requests cloaked as necessities. As an accountant, I'd kept meticulous records to stay sane, but they'd become my chains. I opened spreadsheets buried deep in my computer, each line a tally of dates, amounts, and reasons. At first, I thought tracking them gave me control, but the growing totals became shackles. What started as love turned to duty, then a rhythm I never questioned. The transfers became automatic, as if I were a machine built to catch their falls. I remembered Sabrina's kiss on my cheek, her words about how they couldn't survive without me. I mistook it for gratitude, but it was a warning. I'd become their invisible safety net, enabling their risks without fear of consequence. Each document was a scar, a wound healed poorly. I'd been rewritten not Kathy, the mother, or Kathy, the woman, but a shadow bearing their burdens. Sitting in that quiet office, the truth crystallized in ink and numbers. I wasn't living for myself. I was surviving as their silent crutch, and the weight of that truth crushed me more than any debt I'd paid. I recalled 2016 with aching clarity. Sabrina's boutique was crumbling and paid rent, demanding suppliers, a dream on the verge of collapse. Daryl's savings were gone, the bank had refused them. They came to me, their desperation veiled in polished words. I agreed to help, but not without protection. I offered $55,000, but only if Sabrina signed a notarized agreement, giving me 51% ownership of the boutique. It wasn't generosity, it was self-preservation. Sabrina signed without reading, her hands trembling, her voice sharp with impatience. The notary stamped it, and I filed it away. That contract became my quiet shield, tucked in a drawer as the favors piled up. I stayed silent, letting Sabrina think I was naive or forgetful. She didn't know I'd been underestimated my whole life, and that had sharpened me. Sometimes, I'd open the drawer, trace the bold ink of our names, and remind myself that even as I was used, I'd planted a safeguard. She thought I'd forgotten. I hadn't. I was waiting. There was bitterness in how easily she dismissed me. But beneath it grew empowerment. That contract proved I wasn't as powerless as they believed. Patience, I learned, has its own strength. Sabrina came to me one afternoon, her voice dripping with rehearsed sweetness, talking of expansion and opportunity. Then came the ask, $70,000. Spoken casually, as if I'd co-sign a loan without question. I met her eyes and said no. I would no longer rescue them, not now, not ever. Her laughter tried to brush it off, but I saw the crack in her facade. Days later, Daryl and Sabrina appeared at my house, tension thick between them. I placed the folder on the coffee table. Daryl opened it, his hands hesitant, confusion giving way to shock as he read the notarized agreement. He turned to Sabrina, his voice breaking, asking if she'd really signed it. Her denial was sharp, accusing me of manipulation, of preying on her vulnerability. I leaned back, my voice calm but firm. This wasn't manipulation, it was accountability. I reminded them of the late-night calls, the bills I'd paid, the collapses I'd prevented. The room stilled. Daryl clutched the papers, pale. Sabrina's protests grew thin. For the first time, I felt the power shift. Then came the Latora thick envelope with Sabrina's lawsuit, claiming the contract was signed under duress. Exhaustion hit me, but I called Donna Ruiz, a retired litigator with a razor-sharp mind. I handed her everything, the contract, bank records, receipts. She laid them out, her confidence unwavering. In court, Sabrina sat rigid, her eyes burning with indignation. Daryl sat behind her, weary. Donna presented the evidence methodically: contract, transfers, receipts. Sabrina's lawyer argued coercion, but the judge, a silver-haired woman with deep lines of experience, wasn't swayed. She reviewed the documents and ruled. The evidence was clear. Ownership stood. The gavel's strike echoed like a final note. Sabrina flinched, her confidence drained. Daryl couldn't meet my gaze. I felt no triumph, only the release of truth finally spoken. Stepping out of the courthouse, sunlight warmed my face. I breathed deeply, the air feeling new. As if I'd been waiting years for this moment. The city hummed around me, distant. I closed my eyes, letting the light remind me I was still here, standing in my own freedom. 6 months later, my life was my own. I'd moved to a small house by an Austin lake, where mornings glowed with soft light and birdsong. I tended herbs and flowers, their strength mirroring my own. Afternoons, I painted or taught money management to women and students, finding purpose in their growth. One day, Mateo arrived with a drawing of Grandma's garden, crooked flowers under a smiling sun. I pinned it to my fridge, a gift of love, not obligation. When Daryl called, his voice heavy with regret, I listened. He admitted his mistakes, asked to try again. I told him I wouldn't rescue him, but I'd give him a chance to stand on his own. It wasn't forgiveness yet, but a door left open. That evening, Mateo knelt beside me in the garden, the lake reflecting the fading sun. I handed him a plant, showing him how to root it in the soil. I told him broken ground can bloom again with care. As we worked, peace settled over me. Family isn't about money, it's about respect and the courage to rebuild. Healing comes not from winning, but from knowing when to stop giving yourself away and letting others carry their weight. Boundaries aren't walls, they protect love from becoming a burden. My journey taught me respect can't be bought or begged. It must be chosen. If you've ever felt invisible, know it's never too late to reclaim your voice and plant something new. What did this story stir in you? Share your thoughts below. If it moved you, like, subscribe, and ring the bell for more stories of strength and renewal.